All right, what a game from the Rose Bowl. Mark Rogers TV with instant analysis of the thrilling 54-48 win for the Georgia Bulldogs over the Oklahoma Sooners. We've got Savannah Lee Richardson standing by from Bulldog Illustrated, and also Alan Pepper. He joins us from 98 Sports Talk. Savannah, wow, we've talked Georgia football quite a few times. I know that this has been a long time coming for you, something that you have just dreamt about, thought about, build up to, and now it's finally here. Has it sunk in? How does it feel?
It has not sunk in. Like, I have to sit there for just a minute and have, like, honestly have a moment, like, pinch myself. Is this real life? What a performance by both teams, though. It's just crazy to think that it went to double overtime in a semifinal game. Both teams played tremendous defense. However, Georgia's junkyard defense, if that's what you want to call them, really stepped up there in the second half of the football game and really shut down Baker Mayfield, except for that one touchdown drive. So very proud of Georgia, and it's just kind of surreal. I'm still like in shock, not quite ready to like, or not ready, but I don't know. I'm mumbling and rambling now because I'm just like, oh my goodness, Georgia just won the Rose Bowl and they're going to the national championship game.
Well, like you say, Savannah, there were two real big waves to the game. There was the first half for Oklahoma, in which Georgia, with one of the best defenses in the country, was definitely on its heels, seemed surprised, seemed shocked by the pace of the game, the speed, the plays, the creativity of the offense, the precision, so many playmakers on the field, and they were just back on their heels. And at that point, you had to be wondering, okay, what's going to have to change here to change momentum and get us back in the game?
Yeah, I agree. Georgia definitely had to reevaluate the defense and get back to their roots. They kind of kept themselves on their toes in the first half. Baker did whatever he wanted to do against them, but I felt like Kirby Smart and Mel Tucker were just like, all right, guys, we're going to have to come in and play our defense. And that's when, opening up the second half, when Roquan and Trent and David Marshall, Tyler Clark, they just completely took over the Oklahoma offensive line. And the championship games are won in the trenches, and Georgia played a tremendous game on the defensive line, despite a couple of calls I think that were missed where Oklahoma's offensive line was holding here or there. But Georgia's defense held that tenacity, held their composure, and just ultimately put Baker Mayfield in a place where he couldn't get anything done.
Everyone knows Baker Mayfield. Everyone knows the playmaking on offense. In the passing game, are you surprised by Rodney Anderson running for 201 yards in the rushing offense being that successful against Georgia, at least for most of the game?
I am. It looked like he had like Crisco or some kind of like slippery substance on him, because it didn't matter what Georgia did. They could not get him down. Kudos to him. He had a heck of a ball game, despite getting a little rattled there in the beginning of the game where he got hit out of bounds. But he played well, and he made our defense – he showed a weakness to our defense. And so I just can't say enough about Oklahoma and how well they played. Once you get to that stage, it's hard to be like, oh, Georgia was, did better here and there. But Georgia ultimately forced a turnover at the end of the game. And they just, I don't know if it was more heart or what, but that defense just looked like they wanted it so bad that they were going to do whatever it took. And so it's very proud of them.
Georgia beats Oklahoma 54-48 in the best game that we've seen of the national semifinals through the 4 years of the playoffs. We also bring in Alan Pepper from 98 Sports Talk. Alan, what are your initial impressions from what you saw at the Rose Bowl?
My thoughts, just looking, I haven't had a lot of time to reflect, obviously, but looking back on it, the first thing that comes to mind is, amazing, amazing game. That is the game of the year. You're not going to see a better game, a double overtime versus two top teams, a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, an elite defense, and an elite coach in Kirby Smart. I can't give enough credit to both teams, though. Oklahoma came out and looked, I don't want to say unstoppable, but they look like everybody, Oklahoma fans thought they would look like. They were going up and down the field on Georgia. There was seemingly no stopping them on offense. And then in the second half, you go into halftime, and Kirby Smart and Mel Tucker made some adjustments. Dogs come out, they get a couple 3-and-outs, swing the momentum, get some touchdowns, and then take the lead. I mean, what what I don't even know what to say. It's just such an amazing game. I don't, this one's going to be talked about for a while.
Yeah, so it's not like Georgia had a bad first half offensively. When they had the ball, they drove down the field, they got points on the board, they put up the 17 points. The last one a bit aided by a questionable call on special teams by Oklahoma to pooch kick it down there and put them in position to maybe give them a little nudge going into halftime, a little momentum that, okay, we're back to 2 scores and we can go from here. But it appeared as though I'll let you both chime in on this one in regards to Savannah first, and then Alan in regards to the defense not being more conservative, thinking, okay, we got burned in the first half, we got to be more conservative and try to keep this in front of us. But they got more aggressive and they cut loose in their game planning with Roquan Smith and company after that.
I agree. I think the first half was Georgia was trying to figure out exactly what Baker and Ronnie Anderson and Lincoln were going to call. I mean, that the one trick play where Baker Mayfield was sitting in the end zone wide open that was an impressive play call. Kirby Smart and him going back and forth was really nice to see. It's just a real competitive game. But I think that once Kirby and Mel saw exactly what Oklahoma was going to try to do on the offense, that's where they went, and that's how they were a bit able to become more aggressive, because they were able to stick guys where they needed to go. However, Mark, I will say this. After that first half, like, my entire household kind of got like a little frazzled, and I had to like go change. I had to go put my SEC championship shirt on that I wore to at that game, and I had to completely change my outfit because I was so superstitious. So I want to say that I'm the good luck charm, but I'm just kidding. The defense completely took over in the second half, and they did a tremendous job.
Hey, when you win the big game, you can say you're the good luck charm. You can say whatever you want, Savannah. So the winner goes to spoils. So whatever works for you, you can say it. Alan, your thoughts about what turned this thing around?
Well, Georgia, and kind of going off of what she just said, Georgia has had, and I'm losing my voice here. I've been yelling and screaming. I'm a Georgia fan, obviously. But one of the things that Georgia has done and Kirby Smart has preached is to keep the motto's kind of been keep chopping wood, right, all season long. And he has had an aggressive mentality. You look back at that Mississippi State game, and on the first play of the game from scrimmage, what do? We come out and we throw a flea flicker for a touchdown to go up 7-0 immediately. You look at the South Carolina game, a game that we were favored in by, I can't remember what we were favored by, but a touchdown, maybe 10 points, something like that. What do we do on the opening kickoff, which a lot of Georgia fans question? We come out, we do an onside kick to start the game. And Kirby Smart's, reaction to that was, well, I want to be the aggressor. I want to be the hunter, not the hunted. And so I think that's that's his mentality. He preaches that to his team, and I think they feed off of that. And one other thing that I noticed in the game was, and I got to give Oklahoma a lot of credit. I mean, what a great team. But in the first half, Oklahoma seemingly was able to get, whether it was a tight end or an offensive lineman, they were actually able to get into the second level and get a hat on Roquan Smith, where Roquan wasn't able to make as many plays. Now, in the second half, you didn't see that happening. So I don't know if Kirby Smart made it. Again, I'm not a big X's and O's guy. So I don't know if Kirby Smart, clearly there was some adjustment made there, but you did not see any Oklahoma linemen getting down the field and getting on Roquan Smith where he could not make plays. In the second half, you saw Roquan Smith running wild like you've seen him all year. He's the Butkus Award winner. He's the best linebacker in the nation. And in the second half, he showed why. He ran around. He was the one that led that defense and got those couple stops coming out of the gate in the second half to really shift the momentum in Georgia's favor. And that's when Georgia took the lead.
We're talking at the Rose Bowl, 54-48. Georgia defeats Oklahoma to get to its first national championship game since the 1981 Sugar Bowl. Savannah Lee Richardson joins us from Bulldog Illustrated, and Alan Pepper from 98 Sports Talk. Savannah, I thought what was going to possibly be the play of the game was, with about 5.5 minutes left, Caleb Kelly came in and tripped up Sony Michel, really stonewalled him at the line of scrimmage, fumble. Stephen Parker scoops it up, out jukes a couple defenders, and runs it all the way for a touchdown lead, 45-38 for Oklahoma. And it didn't look real good at that point. Still a lot of time left, but especially once they stopped Georgia again and Oklahoma got the ball back.
Yeah, Oklahoma came ready to play. They knew what Georgia was going to do. They knew that they were going to try to run the ball. However, Thunder and Lightning came to play as well. Going into the second half, I think Nick Chubb was averaging 15 yards a carry, and Sony Michel was like 48 yards a carry, I felt like it was. But it just seemed like when they would pitch it out to the edges that Sony Michel and Nick Chubb would just almost just be able to run at will. Granted, as the second half proceeded, they did adjust and they shut those corners down. But Georgia was able to keep into this game because of Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. Jake Fromm made great calls and stuff and made great decisions. He's still a freshman, and he showed some freshman tendencies in the game. But if it wasn't for Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, I don't know that Georgia would have won that ball game, especially Sony Michel having 4 touchdowns. And then despite causing the fumble and having that huge momentum shift, taking that direct snap in the second overtime and running it in for a score, that just solidified the season. And I felt like, them coming back, that just capped it all, him being able to score the winning touchdown to head into that.
Sony Michel with 181 yards on the ground. Nick Chubb with 145. They ran it at will as Georgia eclipsed like 325 yards rushing. That's, of course, what they wanted to do, and that's what they could do, and they passed it when they needed to. So my thoughts, Alan, was I think Oklahoma got a little bit too conservative. So they scored the defensive touchdown to go up 45-38. They come back, and the defense stops Georgia again. They get the ball in Baker Mayfield's hands. They don't throw the ball. There's about 5 minutes left. They don't let their best player throw the ball. They ran it 3 straight times and punted. And it wasn't a very good punt that set up the Georgia final drive from the 41.
Well, and, that's what I'm sure you guys have noticed. That's what you see in a lot of these big football games, right? You see a team that will get out to a lead and suddenly, whoa, instead of, we've got to go win this game, suddenly it becomes, well, we've got to protect this lead and we've got to bleed the clock. And I said that at halftime. I said, I'm hoping as a Dog fan that Oklahoma will come out with a more, because they had I think it was a 10-point or a 2-touchdown lead at halftime. So I was hoping that Oklahoma would come out with more of a conservative game plan in the second half and try to run the ball a little bit more. And that way, that would enable us to get some more stops. And you're absolutely right, Mark. They did that. They seemed to get a little conservative. And you also saw that with Georgia. Once we went up, what did we do? We got a little bit conservative, right? When we got that 7-point lead in the second half. So those types of things in these big football games are not uncommon. You see it all the time. A team gets a lead and they say, whoa, we don't want to blow this one. So then you start seeing runs, and coaches know this. So what do? You stack the box to take that run away to stop what they're doing. So I think you're exactly right. I think that's a good observation. In my opinion, they absolutely did come out with a more conservative game plan, and that hurt them. That allowed Georgia to make those plays, get those stops, and get back into the game.
Savannah, what seemed to be an amazing play that was huge in this one was, so during the game tying drive that Georgia needed, obviously, they take it over from their own 41 after the situation we just set up with the short punt. Oklahoma gets conservative. Georgia gets the ball back. They get it to about midfield, and they had a 3rd and long, and Jake Fromm had a blitzer right in his face. Came right through the gap, right at him. He sidestepped him, and then he jumped up in the pocket and he dumped it off to Sony Michel for a huge gain.
His vision on that play after all game, noticing here and there where he would check he would check down a couple times, but there was 3 or 4 times where I noticed DeAndre Swift or Sony Michel wide open as that last option of the play or whatever. But he saw Sony and he pitched it, and that's essentially what kept Georgia into the ball game. And I mean, like I just said before, Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, hands down the 2 players of the game, in my opinion. But switching sides just really fast, I want to say kudos to Georgia's secondary too, because when you have targets that Baker Mayfield does, the tight end, and then I believe it's number 9, the tall kid that's super quick. I can't think of his name right off the top of my head.
DB Lamb, and you've got Hollywood Brown out there, both of them.
And Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews, the big tight end, probably the best tight end in college football.
Well, in the first half, he was able to throw to them almost at leeway, it seemed like. But then in the second half, DeAndre Baker, Dom Sanders, Aaron Davis, all those guys took a step up and really just shut down and never gave Baker Mayfield something to throw at. And when he did, it was either overthrown or his wide receivers would just miss it. So I have to give credit to that secondary for what they did, being, as like I've said before, undersized and underweight. Despite that, they played a tremendous game. But going back to what you were talking about, that drive, if Jake Fromm did not see him, then Oklahoma would be Rose Bowl champions right now. So he's a true freshman, but yet he was able to make that play, and I think that was a veteran play, and that's what really set the tone for the rest of the ball game.
What I thought was so curious on that play, Mark, was if you're if you've watched Georgia, you watched every single Georgia game like I have. When Jake Fromm, every time he has made a decision to tuck the ball and run with it, and I said this to a guy that I was sitting next to, I said, because he scrambled, I believe it was 2 plays before that as well. And every time I have seen Jake Fromm scramble out of the pocket like that, he tucks the ball, he protects it, and he's got his head down and he's just committed to running. Well, on that particular play, huge play, what does he do? He tucks the ball, but he keeps his eyes downfield, and he found a receiver. It was just a great play by Jake Fromm to keep his head up and find somebody to make a play. I mean, what a play.
And he delivered a couple plays later, because Oklahoma made 2 really good defensive plays to put them into a 3rd and 10. And then he finds Terry Godwin down the middle inside the 10-yard line, down around the 6, that obviously set up the pass interference that led to the Nick Chubb Wildcat play that got us tied up. And then the defense took over in what you would consider to be plenty of time for Baker Mayfield and decent field position to make the plays, get into field goal position with a kicker who's used to making 45-yard field goals, that Oklahoma was still in good shape, and Georgia put the clamps on him.
Yeah, I tell you, and I believe it was a minute left, if I'm not mistaken, that Baker Mayfield had there to, drive his team down and, potentially kick a game-winning field goal there. When, my thoughts were at that moment, oh Lord, we gave him too much time. But luckily, the dogs on defense just kept, again, they just kept chopping wood. They kept, they did what they needed to do to get the job done. They got the stop and forced the overtime.
Then in the overtime, we're not going to talk a lot of Oklahoma here in terms of dissecting their mindset, but I just thought that they were way too conservative. I think basically when you want to have the ball last, of course, you want to be able to know what you need to do. So Oklahoma in good position, knowing that, okay, if Georgia scores a touchdown, we've got to go for it on 4th down. If they kick a field goal, well, we still try to win the game, but we can kick the field goal. Or if they don't score, you get conservative, and then you just settle down and kick the field goal. So Isaac Nada, the misconnection from Jake Fromm, Georgia has to kick the field goal. They're up 48-45, and then Oklahoma comes out, and they just get conservative and run the ball, and they kick their own field goal. And it kind of followed that trend for the couple overtimes. And then obviously Lorenzo Carter makes the, I don't want to say the play of the game, because there were several, but Savannah, Lorenzo Carter, a guy that's been around this program forever, one of the leaders, one of the main stalwarts on the defensive side, that just seems like he's been around campus forever. It's good to see a guy like that who's been through the ringer, who came back for his senior season, make one of the great plays. He just reached those long arms up there, and he just happened to just graze that ball. It was similar to the blocked field goal in the SEC championship game, where DaQuan Hawkins-Muckle hit it with his hand as well. But
for a senior who decided to come back for his last season and the ability to make that play, you have to think that just that is why they came back to play. They knew they had stuff to finish, and they have achieved everything that they've wanted to finish. But the athleticism, I just remember looking at the huddle that they were in right before Oklahoma decided to kick the ball, because Oklahoma took a timeout and kind of wanted to decide if they wanted to still kick it or not, which in my opinion, I felt like they probably should have took a chance at the end zone. I mean, you have two or three mismatches with the tight end, with Lamb and the tight end, but they decided to go the conservative route, which probably if I was in a coaching situation, I probably would have too, just to stay on the safe side and keep myself into the ball game. But then Lorenzo Carter, I mean, the Kirby, just the hand motions and everything else, I was like, Kirby has drawn something up. And sure enough, his reach and his length of his arms just was able to graze that ball, because the kicker wasn't kicking it but barely above the defensive lineman's head. So it was nice to see him to make that play. I know I'm like stuttering, but I'm still kind of like trying to process it all. It's just really surreal.
All right, Alan, one closing shot, whether you want to make other points concerning this game or look ahead to a possible Clemson or Alabama game.
Well, back to what I said originally, I mean, this was the game of the season. If you want to, if people are going to talk about the 2017, college football season, they're going to talk about this Georgia-Oklahoma semifinal. This is everything that you want in a game. You got the Heisman Trophy winner, this great offense coming in to face this SEC team with a great defense that just likes to, play old school football, run the ball, and play great defense. So that's kind of my takeaway of the game. It's just a great game. And then to piggyback off that, I mean, what a play by Lorenzo Carter. I've heard reports on him that he is every bit of 6'6" and he is long. And I think we saw that on that blocked kick. I mean, and that to me just kind of encapsulated Georgia's season. They just never quit. They don't give up. They keep chopping wood, like Kirby Smart has preached all season, chop wood. And he did it on that play and got the biggest play of the season for the Georgia Bulldogs. What a play. Great job by the Georgia Bulldogs. And looking ahead, I'm an SEC homer. So I would I know people are going to hate on this, because there's a lot of hate out there for the SEC. And there's also a lot of love, obviously too. But national talk, there's a lot of hate for the SEC. I would love to see an all SEC national championship. I mean, how about that? The storyline on that one, Nick Saban versus Kirby Smart, the master versus the teacher. I mean, what a storyline that one would be. I'm not watching the game currently, so I don't know who's got the lead, whether it's Clemson or Bama. I think
we won't
that
spoil
game
it for you.
What's that?
We won't spoil it for you.
Okay. Yeah, obviously we don't know who's going to win that one. But what a storyline you would have if Bama can win this game and have a Nick Saban, Kirby Smart national championship.
And Savannah, before I let you shut it down here and give you the closing remark, because Alan, Savannah joins me on a regular basis to talk Georgia football, and she's been a long-suffering, as I'm sure you have as well. And when I say suffering, it's not like you're losing 9 games a year, but in hopes of
I feel it.
winning huge games, you constantly win 9 or 10 and just finish in the top 15 in the country and don't quite make it. And that's been the lifelong story of a Georgia fan. I just wanted to point out the stat line for one Jake Fromm, and it kind of backs up the narrative we've been talking about the entire discussion. He was a guy that it was all Baker Mayfield against Georgia's great backs and great defense, and that was the narrative. And Oklahoma's got an average defense, and what are they going to do? And Jake Fromm, he's going to take a back seat. Is he not going to screw the game up? Kind of a thought process and storylines about this game. But man, we knew he didn't have to throw for 400 yards. That didn't have to happen, but a clean 20 for 29, 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Very clean performance out of Jake Fromm.
Wow. Yeah, what a game.
We'll let you shut it down, whether it's more on this game or a look ahead to a possible matchup with Alabama or Clemson.
Kudos to the true freshman. He doesn't. All the players say it all the time now. They don't. He doesn't play like a true freshman, so we don't look at him like a true freshman. And he proved it in the Rose Bowl. He made great decisions. He led the team to its first national championship in my lifetime. I can remember 2012 being 6-7 yards away from going and facing Notre Dame and feeling the hurt of just because I eat, sleep, and breathe SEC football, and especially Georgia football, being so invested. But Georgia finally got over that hump and is going to face a national champion. Granted, I picked Clemson to win the game. I think Clemson overall is a more complete team. Their defensive line is absolutely probably one of the most impressive in the entire country. However, I mean, the committee chose who they did. I thought, either way, Alabama or Ohio State, it was going to be a good matchup. However, I think with how it's gone in the past, Ohio State probably should have gotten in there just because of they won their conference championship and they did what they were supposed to do, and Alabama sat out a week and didn't have to prove to the entire world that they deserved to be there. So
I should have you defending me on Twitter, but go ahead, Savannah.
Anyway, I think that it's just going to be probably one of the best national championship games we'll see in the last few years. Last year's national championship game was awesome. The one before that was pretty good as well, but I think this one will probably top it all. You're either going to have, Nick Saban versus Kirby Smart, or you're going to have the two young guns who are up and coming and recruiting and are just really taking over college football by storm. So either way you look at it, it's going to be probably one of the best national championships that we've seen in the last 5 or 6 years. And that excites me because I love a good football game. And I'm going, so glad to be there.
That's phenomenal. Congrats to you, and enjoy the game, enjoy the trip, enjoy everything that goes along with it. All right, everybody, take a deep breath. Oklahoma 31-14. Georgia comes back 38-31, 45-38, 45 all, overtime, back and forth, field goal, block field goal, 54-48 after the Sony Michel touchdown. And Georgia is in the national championship game against Clemson or Alabama. I'd like to thank Alan Pepper. Join him on YouTube on 98 Sports Talk. And also, of course, Savannah Lee Richardson, who joins us on a regular basis here. Bulldog Illustrated for your best in Georgia football coverage. Savannah, Alan, I appreciate it. And you take care tonight. Have a fun night and try to continue to savor the victory.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.